Hello. I'm Murray Herbst, Director of Entrepreneurship for UTS, and I've got a confession of my own to start with this week. So we don't normally do it this way, but bear with me. Firstly, can we get a warm-up round of applause from the audience, please? Okay, I feel better now because I'm going to confess I used to run fish burners, and when I was at fish burners, we had this policy around, okay, we're about tech-enabled companies. We only want people coming in that are scalable from day one, kind of super globally ambitious, blah, blah, blah. And that was a mistake because a lot of companies that come in don't look like that on day one. I did a kind of retrospective with Pete Davison around what were the companies from 5 years ago and which ones are doing well at the moment, and a lot of LinkedIn scraping and stuff like that. B2B SaaS companies don't start out as B2B SaaS companies. They start out in that data set as people that are consulting first, who have kind of deep industry expertise in a certain area, and are making lots of money so that they can afford to live in Sydney and hire good people and then productize something and turn it into something scalable. And I feel bad for a lot of people that we said no to back then because I was an idiot and didn't realize what those companies would turn into. So I'm going to make up for it a little bit today. Thank you for indulging me on that story. Please welcome Najib.
Thank you.
And you'll see why I told that story. In 10 seconds, what is Export Connect?
So we're an advisory and consultancy service that helps food and agribusiness sector export, open new markets, grow them, and we do this by providing them with the market intelligence, strategies, and connections they need to succeed.
Okay, beautiful. And I know, another round of applause. Let's keep it going.
It's a very loving environment here.
Got a wonderful audience here today that's making the most of it. Who were you before Export Connect?
So from a professional perspective, I started off actually a couple of years as a cadet for what was Coopers & Lybrand, now PwC, in corporate tax. It definitely wasn't for me. I then joined my brother and we ended up being consolidators, which in a very quick explanation, we aggregated a whole bunch of Australian food and agribusiness products, packed them into a container and shipped them direct to retail chains in the Middle East. When I got sick of the Middle East, what that was really good for was by the time I left, I put on about 150 Australian brands. So I was dealing with Arnott's and Sanitarium and all these guys, as about your age actually. When I got sick of the Middle East and working with other people's brands, I created my own brand of fruit and nut bars and took that to Asia. I wanted a stretch and a challenge, became the #1 bar in all 8 markets that I took it to. An American business took that over. Didn't want to do the small business thing anymore, although I had all these connections with buyers in Asia. And so I was given the opportunity to create and deliver export programs both at a state level and a national level through what's now called Investment New South Wales and Food Innovation Australia Limited. And so I got the experience and the connections to work with stakeholders and create platforms for both digitally and analog for food businesses to expand overseas.
Okay, so you know exports.
Yes.
Cool. And like with that background, that's incredible. That domain expertise is unique. You can't find that anywhere else. But you're working closely inside government at the time. What are your first memories of the Export Connect idea? Where did that come from?
So it was predominantly in my role at FIAL. So being government funded, but sort of operating outside of government, so to speak. So I wasn't sort of hampered by having to produce briefs to go to ministers and things like that. We were allowed to operate almost as a business. It was a startup, so they brought me on. My personality trait is that of it's actually, if you do 16 personalities, if you know those. So I'm actually entrepreneur. So I'm a hunter, and so they needed to create something from scratch. So I went and created it. Of course, we were a very small, lean team, and it meant that I needed consultants or service providers to deliver a lot of the programs that I was designing. And I just saw there was a bit of a vacuum. There weren't really many consultants or service providers that had the kind of export experience by breadth of markets, by breadth of product categories. So you could find the equivalent of me for wine, and they wouldn't know anything else. You would find the equivalent of me for meat, and they wouldn't know anything else. I needed people who could work with the industry in total. And so that was when I started thinking, when I get sick of this, I think I know what I could do.
Okay, and how did you do that? So living in Sydney, expensive place, scary transition? Or?
Yeah, well look, I think I'm probably at the other side of where these guys are. So maybe a lot of you are already at home and you've got the comfort of having food and accommodation, even a car to drive. So I started this business after I had already made money. So I didn't need a big salary to get going. I could sustain myself. One thing I did say though, and I committed to, and it's remained to this very day, is that I wouldn't borrow, I wouldn't seek investment, I would grow the business organically. If I can get industry to pay for my services, then that is the validation for my idea. And so very fortunate that within a couple of months, I actually started paying myself a salary. I mean, nowhere near what I was earning, but I was able to pay myself a salary. And I did that for a reason, because it meant that was money coming out of the bank account, which then created a sense of urgency that I need to bring in more business and deliver more because I'm going to run out of money.
Yeah.
And then it just grew from there. So for me, starting a bit later, I was able to do that. I didn't have the mortgage and all the other things that ordinarily people would have to battle if they wanted to start up in their sort of 30s.
But also a company that makes money quickly. That sounds good. Yeah,
look, I was very fortunate. So I mentioned earlier, and I made a point of it to say that I already knew a lot of food companies through the first business. I already knew a lot of buyers through the first and second business. And then I knew a lot of stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I mean government departments and industry associations through the 6 years that I spent split between state and national. In addition to more suppliers and more buyers, through what I was delivering. So I had a really strong network. That's point number one. So and fortunately for me, I had an excellent reputation. So when I went out and created Export Connect, I had a ready audience that was willing to take a risk on my service because of what I had already been able to demonstrate. So that's what helped, the income come in, and that's what helped the flow of clients signing up. Which then, there's the fear of missing out, and I'm one of the worst FOMO people on earth, to the disdain of my own staff, because every time I find a new project, they're like, Najib, slow down. We haven't even finished what we're working on yet. And I'm like, no, come on, don't worry, you can do it. So then when others hear that they're getting help, they then want to sign up as well. I mean, it's just a sort of a trigger.
What did that look like, the growth over, so it was 2017 you started? 2017
we started, so we turned 5 actually last month, and the revenue for the first, so we even from the first year, we were able to bring in a 6-figure turnover, low, but still 6 figures. The first 2 years were sort of, we sort of like shot up, and then the first 2 years it sort of plateaued. We were then starting a transition up. COVID hit, so almost half our life is COVID. COVID hit, but fortunately for us, and how we help companies is we either work with them directly and do their market analysis, competitor data sets, prepare their pitch and introduce them to buyers ourselves. The other way we help is through stakeholders. So we deliver export workshops around market selection, export pricing, market entry strategies, and the type. All of these get taught through workshops. Up until COVID, we delivered those workshops in person, which meant I'd fly to Brisbane and then Adelaide, and then, and it made things a bit more expensive for the stakeholders to book us and the like. We had the idea to deliver our services online, like our workshops online, before COVID hit, but we never pulled the trigger, because even though it makes absolute sense, everybody still wanted the workshops in person. So we're like, well, okay, we'll just park that idea. So very early on, when the team and I, and at that time, at the start of COVID, the team was 3 of us, sat there and thought, okay, how are we gonna, we basically had only enough money in the bank to survive a month. How are we going to do things such that we can continue revenue coming in? And we were like, okay, let's pull the trigger on these online workshops and online forums. So the very first thing we did, and we did it for free, I leaned on one of my buyers overseas. So he's actually the chairman of City Super, which is the Harris Farms of Hong Kong, and said, let's do a webinar about the Hong Kong market. And that triggered a whole lot of interest. And then the stakeholders, I invited the stakeholders along, and they were like, oh, wow, that was pretty good. How can you deliver your workshops online? And we're like, well, actually, yes. Nobody wanted them. So after that sort of, I'd say, couple of months of living month by month as a business, we then rapidly grew. We delivered a lot of our projects online. It was excellent revenue for us. It was actually profitable because we didn't have to travel. Our reputation blossomed. Our reach to companies became bigger because being online, more people can attend. We actually have 1,900 food and agribusinesses on our databases, on our database right now. We then, I think you may have some questions later on that I'll wait for the question, but that's how it evolved.
On that note, I like technology enablement in companies. What technologies were enabling that kind of growth?
Yeah, so we had to be lean. So that's the first thing, because we were organically grown, right? I didn't have investor money in there. It was, we are quintessentially industry owned, because it's our clients that have funded us entirely. So we had to be smart about the way we work. So from an accounting perspective, we lean very heavily on Xero. From a CRM perspective, which is not just our database and how do we collect the information of the 1,900 companies, but how do we see them engage with us through our EDMs and participation and the like. We use HubSpot. We are always delivering workshops, delivering presentations, market insights reports. How do we do that professionally without paying for graphic designers and whatnot? So the team became very proficient in Canva. In terms of online delivery, we became really solid on Zoom. So we got to know how to use Zoom well. When WordPress from a website perspective, because a lot of people are coming to the website, they're curious, they attend a workshop and they're like, well, what do these guys do? And so our website is still not exactly where I'd want it to be, but I think that's the nature of the business, is that we're continually evolving, and so I will always feel like the website is never up to date. Then through the work that we were delivering, and I guess this is where the transition comes from being a consultant to having a digital solution platform to share. What we saw was that a lot of the companies that we were helping, either through the workshops or one-on-one, just did not have access to market intelligence. It's expensive. You've got to pay thousands of dollars for Euromonitor, global data. UTS, up until recently, used to subscribe to Euromonitor. In terms of aggregating competitor data in market, when you couldn't travel, how you can't walk the supermarket aisles. So how do you know, and how do you troll through the websites, and how do you know which are the right websites, and how do you aggregate that information, and how do you put it in a way that you can use it? So what we did was we took sort of the key highlight items out of all the market intelligence that we've been sharing with our clients, both on a one-on-one and on a one-to-many model, and offered them in a digital format where they can subscribe, become members. We basically democratized current valuable market intelligence for anyone that doesn't have money to be able to access it. And that's one of the big reasons why we became a part of UTS Startups, is because I don't have a tech background. And so we needed to be in a network where we could meet with the right people to help us develop this product. And you know, there's a website specialist Magellan, that we accessed just today. So we're developing explainer videos for our portal on what to do with the intelligence that's on it. And we just met with Hazen to create the explainer videos for us. You introduced us to an R&D consultant, which has been a super valuable help. Along the way, we had a bunch of mentors that were either with Google and Atlassian and whatever, that were like, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. And so Phoebe organized for me to spend an hour with them. And I was like, and I came out of it thinking, I still don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm now, at least I'm on my way.
More motivated to figure it out, yeah.
And so that's how it evolved. And so that platform is using a full stack, setup. So Vue, Quasar, Firebase. So technology has actually been a big part of our growth.
I just love that. I love that you go from incredible career to this, okay, I'm going to make money for myself doing this directly for the companies that need it, and then I'll grow out the team and build out a kind of 7-figure kind of really interesting company, and then productize that, turn it into a service that a lot more people can access. This is beautiful. It's pandemic resistant. It's enabling a lot more people to export. Like, how many people have you dealt with now that are now exporting because of what you do?
Yeah, so we've delivered 285 projects for 185 clients. We've helped them get into 20 markets. One of the stats that we're really proud of is that in the last 12 months, 50% of the projects that we've delivered and 75% of our revenue has been from repeat work. So that's what makes our business viable, is that we know for the next year, guaranteed we're going to have, almost guaranteed, we can cover everyone's salaries with just the work that'll come through the door out of repeat. So whatever we do new is what we use to further develop our product offer. On a digital solution side of things, we created the portal to be a subscription model for food businesses to jump in and access the information. We sort of, from a marketing perspective, thought, okay, the best way to promote this to food businesses is by going through multipliers. By multipliers, I mean government agencies, industry associations. They all have, we've got 1,900 on our database. They have 10,000 on their database. I'm like, if we can convince them that it's a good idea, they'll share it with their network, and that's how we're going to reach them, and we won't have to do a single piece of advertising. As it turned out, when we started presenting to stakeholders, they were loving it so much that the first one we presented to bought something like 100 memberships for food businesses. The second one that we presented to wanted to share it throughout their entire network, but they have political issues within that organization, and that didn't work. The third one for now. And they've been going through another restructure. So they've been through, it's here. So I think the next one's going to be in our favor. And then the third one asked us to build a portal for them. And that one for them, they're an industry association that has about another 25 similar and closely related industry associations. So if we nail it for them, potentially we're going to have another 25 building on top of that.
Okay.
From presenting our digital solutions, what we've also, so we've delivered a, so this is a boring bit, we've delivered a step guide for dairy companies to register for the Indonesian market. The boring bit is it's very technical stuff.
Are they making money?
Those that can get in are.
Yeah, that's not boring.
Well, so we've created the step guide, and then they wanted us to present it in a, in an analog way, and it's a report. And we were like, maybe we could present this in a digital format that could be more interactive with the dairy producers. And they said, well, what do you mean? And we showed them the portal, and so now I think our next digital solution is going to be presenting reports in an engaged way. I think we're getting.
Do your team know about that? Okay. 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 We'll start to wrap up. But for me, it's lovely that a lot of your customers are repeat customers. So you're keeping people in business, and they're coming back, and they're happy. It's also nice that when China shut the door or other people, you're keeping people in new markets and keeping Australian companies in business. It's just wonderful things that are happening. I'll finish up by asking, how has the entrepreneurial journey changed you as a person?
Look, I'm inherently a fairly competitive person. I think early on, my idea was that I had to win and others lose. I've realized the importance of collaboration. So I made all these connections, but it was on a transactional level. And then as I became more evolved as a person, and certainly through my time in government, and now especially through Export Connect, what I've realized is whenever I design a product now, I look at the whole ecosystem of food and beverage export, and I figure out who can win from what I'm creating and how can I tie them in. And ironically, the ones that don't participate are the ones that want to win at all costs. So I can spot them from a mile away because that was me. So I just keep them out of my ecosystem. So I think that's how I've changed. I think Export Connect is a success because of all the stakeholders in the ecosystem and the team that we've created within the business. What it also helped me realize is I can't do everything, and so we're very. My team is amazing. I'm a very one type of entrepreneurial. In the 16 personalities, they're advocates, consuls, architects. So they all get the stuff done, and they all care and are responsible, and that's how we've been able to fly.
Okay, I will say one of my other. I'll confess something else. One of my other regrets in life was my dad used to run a hydraulics company, a kind of decent sized company, and he kept asking me whether I wanted to do something in that company, and I kept saying no because I didn't like hydraulics, and I like sitting on computers and doing my thing. But your son Charlie, I know, is an integral part of the company, and I wish I had done that because I see your relationship and how well you work together, and that's a beautiful thing. Would you recommend working with family based on your experience so far for anyone else out there?
As long as it's compatible. Because remember, the first business was with family as well, with my brother, and we got along really well, and that worked. But I've had my other brothers work with each other, and that was miserable. So,
okay,
so on a case-by-case basis, everyone.
Beautiful. Okay. On that note, thank you very much, Najib. This is. For the people watching that might have export companies or know someone that wants to export, what should they do?
Well, apart from reaching out to Export Connect, they should just, evidence-based export is the best way to go. Actually research the market. Don't just turn up in the market and try and figure it out. Do a bit of research and turn up in the market, and with the combination of two, you will figure it out. But you'll waste a lot of money taking a random approach to a market.
Okay, so that's exportconnect.com.au.
.au.
A link in the description. I'll say We run these events every Friday from 3:30 at UTS Startups at Central. We're going to stop the stream now and go to private Q&A where the juicy parts come out. But please join me in thanking Najib.
Thank you.